All right, back with another lesson this week. Going to be talking about a little something maybe a little different. So far, we've went over a lot of things to do in C. The last lesson was on "Bury Me Beneath the Bury Me Beneath the Willow," and it was in D. So we've been working a lot with the C shapes, working on stuff. And we've talked about how you want to see your the notes that you want to use as being very as within the chord shapes that you're trying to that you're actually playing the chord in. So you want to remember that you have a lot of notes right in there, and you also want to remember when you're trying to play these notes, don't anchor down on the chord shape. You want to be able to have fluid motion and only hold down the notes that you want to sustain. Okay, so just a lot of tips like that. Today I figured we'd go over some stuff in G. I don't really have a particular song to work with. Sure, maybe next week we'll find something to work with, maybe in G. But using the melody that we had in Wildwood Flower with C, we can do that in G too. So it's good to be able to practice and play songs different in different keys and things like that. We basically went over, this C run, G. I think we went over some of that. There is, however, a particular video that I just released. I think it was the week before last week. There's actually two videos that I recommend you watching, and that is a video that I created about easy improvising in the key of G using a scale shape, using this one. And also strumming, different ways to strum. So I'll leave the link to those videos down here below this video. And so let's get to work on some G stuff. First of all, I think I might have tuned just a hair. Okay, so first of all, in playing, let's try to talk about playing some cool licks in G. Now, one of them that I went over several times in a bunch of these other videos is, this will also get you out of working with trying to place G, the G chord shape while you're trying to play different licks. Now, you don't want to be bound to this chord shape, okay? So, a really cool lick that you can play is using this really easy scale shape. Okay? Now, if you use this scale shape, and then you have, this is really easy in the key of G because the top two and the bottom two strings are the same exact shape. And it's always first fret, third fret. This is where you're going to get your minor sound, your bluesy sound in playing the key of G. And I apologize if the screen looks like it's flickering. The way this camera works is, if I make a subtle movement or anything, the lighting, it's trying to adjust to the lighting, so I can't really fix that. So hopefully that's not going to be a distraction. But anyway, we have this little lick here, or this scale shape. Now, in order to make that fluid, we want to add the other two notes, and that's all. It's going to be on the third string as well, third fret as well, on the D and the G strings. Okay, so just that scale shape alone will give you a lot of different things to work with. Now, there's a lot of things to keep in mind if you watch the video about improvising with this scale shape. Obviously, I'm talking about notes. On that video, I'm talking about notes with this scale shape. But But I'm also talking about notes around that scale shape. This is the basic skeleton, but we also have other notes before, after, and in the middle of the notes that we're basically, using as our foundation. We have this note. We have this note. We have the note in between. Obviously, some notes work better than others. The same thing on this one. We got a note before, or we got a note after. Got a note in between. There's a note before that one. There's a note after that one. So you get the point. And I go over a lot of that in that video, so definitely watch that one, the one on easy improvisation in the key of G. Since we're going over the key of G, that's good to use. But what I want you to do is keep in mind the tips from that video and apply them in this one. In other words, we have the basic foundation on the top two strings, but notice we can use the open string. We can combine it with the rest of that lick. We can just try one extra note that's outside of this little box here. Another one we got right here is we can do the same thing with this note right here. We can use that open string there, and that's a note that comes before this last note. We also have notes before, or excuse me, after this. There's another really popular note. You're going from the major or minor third to the major third. So we have all these notes we can use on this scale, but we have other notes we can use as well. So a lot of your G licks are going to come from just the bottom part of this. Close enough. Anyway, what I just did there is a really, really popular lick for G, and that is you're gonna still kind of have this scale shape down here. The really cool thing about this is if we just assign a certain finger per fret. So we have the first finger is always going to hit the first fret, third finger is always going to hit the third fret, and then other than that we have open strings. Okay, now sometimes if I'm just wanting to hit these two notes, I'll use my middle finger. Especially if I'm coming back to the G, or yeah, the G. Anyway, that's going to hound me to death until I get it right. But the cool thing about this is, if you just remember to land on that G string with that ring finger on the third fret, you can do this, you can do this, or that's a cool little lick right there. We can just do this, either this finger, so it's a down up on the G, third to fourth, and then pull off on that third fret using your ring finger. We can kind of combine both of these fingers here. So it's a down, up, and then two downs, pull off, down on the G. And I typically use my middle finger for that. So I typically use my middle finger when I'm using, these two frets here, unless I'm combining it with the scale shape. Now, if I want to play just these two notes, then I will use my middle finger most of the time. If I want to combine it with this, I just do that. And you'll notice that also went up, and then I went pull off there. Okay, so you also notice that I did that. It's just easier to get that pull off. It's a stronger finger. So what I want you to keep in mind is, one thing that I did is I used a note in between. It's kind of like a chromatic thing. We're walking it down. That's in its basic form. That's what you can do. And you can add a little bit as you go. Add a little bit more. Try to get used to this shape, and then once you get used to going, then add a little extra. And then you can combine that with that. Okay. The cool thing, one of the coolest licks to use in bluegrass is this little pull off here. Now the first fret pull off we talked about is really effective. But we also have this little pull off here. And that's really bluesy, that's really jazzy, spunky. It's got a lot of attitude to it. So if you just do this, it's just a pull off, it's a downstroke, and it's another downstroke on the G on that 3rd fret. And this position gives us the perfect way to access the 1st and the 3rd fret on 2 different strings. If you do that, that'll give you some good practice on that note. Just do this 3 times and then you can add that little extra slide there. Okay, so there's all kinds of things we can do with this. Or we can go a hammer on. Now this is a cool little lick here. It's a down on the B and up on the G, or up on the E string. And then do this. That's another one that I like to use. And then a down, hold this finger down here. I'm actually barring this, that way I can hit these 2 notes. Now I'll leave this barred because I'm going to come down, and when I hit this, I'm leaving this finger here, going down the G, up on the B. And then, okay, so there's all kinds of different things that you can use just with this cool thing. And to give you this little scale shape, just the bottom half of the scale shape alone is really invaluable. It's something I call a short scale in my Bluegrass Guitar Essentials course on bluegrassguitaressentials.com/webisodes or /products, whichever one you want to go to. I teach something called short scales, which is basically the lower portion, or excuse me, this half, the bottom 3 or 4 strings half of a lot of the full scales. For example, this is a full scale. The short scale version of this, in my opinion, what I go over is the lower half, this bottom half here on the bottom part. And if there's another root note on the 4th string, I will cover that one. But most of the time, it's just the bottom 3. But those are very important. A lot of bluegrass players use that as they go up and play higher parts of the scale. They'll use the higher stuff and then find their way back down here, so they can play the open string stuff that they're more familiar with. So they play a lot of this higher stuff, and then they'll hit an open string to get them back down here and play the stuff they're more familiar with. Okay, so a lot of good stuff that you can use with just that one scale. Now, obviously, we can use the top half too. Now, this is one that Tony Rice uses a lot. If you'll listen to Tony Rice when he's improvising, he uses this low stuff a lot. So obviously, we can use a note after this scale. Now this is where the pinky would really come in handy. And if you can't get that pinky stretch there, you can always use this ring finger and just do a little slide and a slide back. And that takes a little bit of quick motion. Obviously I'm coming right next to the fret, trying to hit the next part of this fret, and then come back down to land behind that fret. Okay, so like I said, you can use the top half or the bottom half. Find stuff that you want to work with. You know, find notes in the middle of these two shapes. There's a note in the middle here, and there's a note in the middle here. Find the note on either side. You can use the open fret for these two strings. You can use, on this side, you can use the 4th fret. Okay, so that's one on this side. Let's try something with the open string. Okay, so you can just find all kinds of different things that you can improvise with. Now, you may not know where to insert these into a song yet. We've obviously been working with Wildwood Flower and Bury Me Beneath the Willow. Those are licks that you can use either or. That we've talked about. You can use licks from one song and transport them, kind of copy and paste them into another song. And you can do this too. You just want to basically sit and fool around with this scale shape. And all the while, you want to try to get used to that down-up stuff. Now obviously I hit a couple open notes there that didn't belong in the scale, so I automatically corrected that. I hit the open string there instead of this note. That's another good one. That's going from the same thing we did here. You can do that here. Okay, so all kinds of different things we can do with this. Next week when we get together, we'll probably discuss some more things on the key of G, maybe kind of see where you're at as far as Wildwood Flower and what is that? Bury Me Beneath the Willow goes. Probably work on those two and see where you're at on that, and then we'll continue on with the key of G, because G is so important. I mean, it's if you want to play a chord or a song in A, you'll take your capo and move it up here to G for the majority of the time. You know, if it's a fiddle tune, just like we did with C, we moved it up and made a D. Well, now if we want to play an A, we could put the capo on the 2nd fret, and we have A. And I can do the same exact licks. And that tune was a little bit of Wild Bill Jones, I think is the name of it. I actually do a lesson on Wild Bill Jones on my YouTube page. But it kind of sounds a little bit like that. But that could be like any tune. Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff that you can use in the key of G, and we can transpose and move it up in the key of A. I like hitting that the D and the G strings when I'm hitting one note and hammering onto the next one. I mean, immediately when I hear this, I hear, you know, Bluegrass when I hear that. I'm like, wow, that sounds awesome. Okay, so we could think of any number of songs that we could use those in. Even Wildwood Flower. let's just piece that together. Let's put it in something that you are familiar with. That's another thing. If you're playing a G, you can use the 3rd fret of the D string instead of the 2nd fret to give it a more bluesy sound to coincide with the rest of that scale. So 3rd fret's bluesier stuff, and the 2nd fret is more major, happy sounding. That's the other thing that I like to do is what I call a unison slide. And I think I may have already told you how to do this. Basically, I'm just going from the 3rd fret, sliding up to the 5th fret on the D string. And what I mean by 5th fret is just obviously if we didn't have a capo, this would be 1, 2, 3, and so on. So 3rd fret D string, 5th fret, and you can use that really. And the key is to play this, play 2 strings at once. So if you're playing that. So you got to really watch about not hitting that B string there. You want to just have 2 notes, and if you have to, you can put your finger down here to meet it. But after a while, you get used to picking that. And what I'm doing when I'm picking that too is I'm kind of picking down and away, so that by the time it gets to the B string, it clears it. So you don't really need to really pick down hard enough. Just the very tip of that pick, hitting that other string will really make a difference. It'll do the work for you. So we can use this little thing. Doing there is I was saying you can use a note before this one, which would be open in this case, and then the same thing we did here. I was keeping a finger down and then hitting that 3rd fret. Well, I can do that here as well instead of this one though. It doesn't really go with it like it was with your middle finger here. What really does go with it is if you take and pull off here. And that's just an up-down. Up on the E, down on the B. Once again, if you have any problems following along, if I'm playing a lot of this fast stuff and you don't know what I'm doing, so a lot of this stuff is I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But, and I don't go back and teach that because it might be more advanced or something. I'm just trying to hit the highlights of some of this stuff. But if you want to go back and learn that, obviously don't forget to use the little little circular gear cog icon down there to adjust the speed of this video. Most of the YouTube videos now enable that, so definitely check that out. Okay. So I think this is going to call it quits for this video. It's about 24 minutes. That's perfect. I've still got to upload it and everything. So. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. When you come here next week, we'll just get together and we'll talk about anything you might want to, any direction you might want to head in from here, any other songs you might have an idea that you want to work on, and just keep going from there. I mean, the best thing I know to do is just keep working with these things, these little licks, and knowing how to get around the fretboard. Obviously, I can show you this stuff. Show you how to get up here, but really what you need to do is be comfortable with where you're at down here. In that video that I'm leaving below about the improvisation in G, it's probably the next step from here, because once you get here, then you'll want to explore going further. And this gets you out of the comfort zone of, I've got to be within the first 3 frets playing G and go past that, it'll get you outside that and it'll bring you up to as far as the 5th fret. And even the 6th if you decide to go a little higher. We can work on a bunch of that stuff too. So I'm going to get off here for today, and I look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll resume our lessons, and we'll see where we're going to go from there. Thanks so much for watching, Levi, and I'll see you next week. I hope you enjoy your bluegrass lesson so far. I hope it's still making a difference for you, and I look forward to seeing where we can go from here. All right? Take care. Have a good 4th of July weekend, and God bless.